Welcome to another episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. This is a very special episode because it marks our 3-year anniversary. So if you've been listening to us for a while, then you can join in our celebration. Yay!
Yay!
On this episode, we cover a post that went viral on BoardGameGeek that involved an ad campaign that we ran for Deliverance. We get into the nuts and bolts of what makes a good BoardGameGeek ad. We talk about marketing strategies outside of BoardGameGeek and Facebook ads. And then we talk about the long-term business strategy of Deliverance and a publishing company, the differences between investments and expenses. Hope you find something in here helpful. Let's get into it.
Game begin.
Let's go.
Go back to the shadow. You shall not fail. Crowdfunding Nerds.
Amazing.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Crowdfunding Nerds. Actually, welcome myself back because I am now back. I had, as many of you know, a new baby joined our family. I made him. His name is John Constantine, and he is awesome.
Demon Slayer.
Yes. Yeah. Coincidentally named after the Demon Slayer. Actually, my father-in-law is Constantine, and my grandfather is John. We love John, and we felt that should be his name, and it just so happened to be the same name as Demon Slayer. John Constantine.
You named him after me.
Yes.
Sean is Irish for John.
What? No way.
Mind
Okay,
blown.
let's go with that. So I'm back and kind of trying to kind of ramp back into working and everything like that. I really appreciate, Sean, I appreciate you for holding the fort down and everything. Hope y'all didn't get too much tinfoil hat conspiracy theory stuff. Actually, I really enjoy that stuff though. But yeah,
I was running out of topics, so I was like, what do we do next? Bring out
I
the
have an
Illuminati.
unlimited source of I am an unlimited source of topics, it seems. I've always loved to talk about what's happening now, because whatever I'm working on now, it just seems like I'm always trying to learn, I'm always trying to advance and trying to do better and that sort of thing. And I haven't been idle while I've been away. I've just been able to focus a little bit more on, of course, my family and on Deliverance, which, just as we're now selling it on the market. We have our website, selling stuff. We have the, we're now, as of the recording of this podcast, well into the Christmas selling season. And, it is a really important time for all board game publishers to sell stuff, because this is when, parents and people will just buy, even though they have no interest in playing themselves. They need gifts for their, local board game nerd and no idea what to buy. So they go to Amazon or they go wherever and see an ad and say, I think Johnny would like this. Or I think, I don't know. We've used Johnny too much. So maybe, Fred would like this game. And they spend $50 on it. So here I am in the middle of this selling season. I did not want to, miss the opportunity, because when, Christmas is over and everybody is finished spending their Christmas money and that kind of thing, everything in the stockings or under the tree, the likelihood that somebody's going to buy it is just going to drop. So take advantage of it now is what my intent was. And so that's exactly what we did. So I thought maybe what we would do is talk a little bit about that and a little bit about maybe the buzz surrounding Deliverance, because it is hilarious and fun and interesting. And I think a great case study for everybody. So where do you want to start, Sean?
Oh, well, we have to start with this ad. So what many people don't know is that we've been running ads on BoardGameGeek. And in the show notes, we'll include a conversation we had with Chad, who sort of heads up the ads on BoardGameGeek. And he gave us some tips on how to create good BoardGameGeek ads. So we implemented some of those in the Deliverance campaign. And it's sort of hilariously gone viral on BoardGameGeek. Like right now, Deliverance is trending top 3 on the hotness list. A forum post about Deliverance is on the front page as well, where someone is actually talking about this particular ad. And seeing the responses, we'll clear a link in the show notes for you to dig through, but seeing the responses has been both exhilarating and hilarious.
Yeah, so there's a thread on BoardGameGeek. The title is, "This is a Poor Advertisement." And it has garnered 45 thumbs, 74 comments so far just in the last day. and people are really, really. I mean, they're torn. I mean, they aren't sure if it's. I mean, we're hearing things like this. This ad is bad. This ad is good. This ad is white supremacy. This ad is, I mean, and everything else in between. Definitely politics and religion and you name it. It is quite
hitting the fan.
Entertaining. Yeah. It's just super entertaining. And so the ad began, or rather the intrigue began. So actually, let me back up and say Deliverance right now is, as you said, Sean, number 3 on the BoardGameGeek hotness list. That actually is, so we peaked at rank 4 during our Kickstarter campaign. We had on our Kickstarter page, we had like 900 comments on the first day. We had a ton of people that were really interested. A bunch of people were going there. We eventually unveiled social goals. We had a BoardGameGeek contest running. We really did everything we could to try to get as high as we could in the BoardGameGeek hotness list. So I thought this was maybe several months ago. I thought, okay, December is a really important month. I want to try to rise in the BoardGameGeek hotness list. So I'm going to schedule a contest and make sure my ads are running and, that awareness is happening on BoardGameGeek of Deliverance during the holiday season. I think that's pretty important. And so I went ahead and scheduled ads with Chad. Actually, we interviewed Chad Kreisen on episode 147. And I really studied what Chad said during that episode and really thought about it, came up with our ads and our contests and everything like that. So the contest launched on the 4th of December. Today, as of recording, it's the 7th. And when it releases, I think this is going to release on the 11th. So you're hearing pretty dang close to the actual case study time of all this happening. So the contest raises BoardGameGeek orders the hotness list generally based on traffic and the amount of buzz in about a particular game. So when a new game launches, like Jamie Stegmeier's Apiary or something like that, it's going to hit number 1 on the hotness list because it went from 0 to a bunch of people looking at the information. So a lot of the hotness list is actually ordered by traffic, how many people are visiting the page, how many people are visiting the forums, and that sort of thing. But also, as with one of our other clients, they had an image rate at Galactic Cruise. Sorry, they had an image that got like 40 thumbs and a ton of was their box cover, and they hit number 1 on the hotness list out of nowhere because of that image. And so for us, this forum thread, I promise you, it's not a plant. I had no idea this was happening until it had like 70 comments on it. But the forum post where everybody is talking about our game and just getting tons and tons of engagement has absolutely assisted with our ranking. Now, before we ranked, so this was yesterday, I want to say before the forum thread was started, we were ranked 10th. And after the forum thread, we rocketed up to number 3 so far. And I think it's possible we could go higher. I'm not sure. Our contest has a couple more days on it. And so we're going to get more traffic to our page and so on. But yeah, so we're, it's going really well. And the thread just so happens to be, very aptly timed. So before we dive into the actual content of the thread, which I think is really interesting, a roller coaster of joy and, like tragedy and comedy. I guess,
let's talk about the ad itself first. Okay. So people know what it is, what we're talking about.
Okay.
So when I was actually perusing BoardGameGeek, I think I was on it for a client or something, and I saw this ad pop up, and my first instinct was, wow, that's an ugly ad. And then I looked at it, I was like, wait, that's our ad. Because Jacob has been running the BoardGameGeek ad campaign. I haven't been touching it, so I don't know what's happening. And then I suddenly thought, oh, it must be working. If that ad has been used, it's working. And then I suddenly thought, oh, we had a conversation with Chad, and he said, do exactly this. So my question is to Andrew, is this something that you did intentionally? And the second question is, did you talk to Sam Healy about this? Did you let him know that this was something you're going to do?
Yes, actually, yes to both. I thought there were others that we've interviewed in the past. One, Jeremy Howard, who we talked about the 3 scroll test and around, I want to say like episode 10. Awesome dude, great friend of mine and podcast, industry friend of mine. And he said, it's really important if you want to use a reviewer's quote that you get their permission, even though they quote it. Just it seems kind of like good manners to get permission or just say, hey, I'm going to use this. Are you cool with this? And so I actually did that with Sam. I said, hey, this is the ad. I sent him a picture of the ad. Are you okay with this? Because he said, this game is 2 thumbs up, and he had like one caveat. He's like, he has his rating system is no thumbs up, 1 thumb up, or 2 thumbs up. And he said, this game is 2 thumbs up. And he had a caveat that for some people, it might be 1 thumb, which means absolutely play this. But you may want to play it before you buy it. 2 thumbs is his rating of like, just buy this immediately. Don't even need to play it before you buy it. And so I just wanted to be sure that he was okay with it. And he said, yeah, I'm totally cool with this. And so with his blessing, I went ahead and submitted the ads. And
maybe just so I can explain the ad, because people don't know what we're talking about. It has the ad consists of a picture of Sam Healy's face with wearing sunglasses.
With his beard.
Pretty cool. And his big beard, and it's kind of got this big, thick, white outline. And then the background has like a Deliverance background. And then it's just a quote that says, I give this 2 thumbs up, or something to that nature. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're talking about. It's very simple. It doesn't say anything about the game. It doesn't say it's a board game.
You don't even see the logo. It has a background image that's kind of been partially faded of the board and kind of the game in the middle of play. So it's an interesting looking image, but what you don't see is you don't see what game it is. You don't know what game it is. You don't know anything other than this guy who you may or may not know says it's 2 thumbs up.
And it also has the BoardGameGeek rating on it.
Oh, yes. So the BoardGameGeek rating is at 8.8 right now. And actually, I don't know if it's going to go up or down. Right now, we've got some people rating it. We're at 8.7 now because we're getting people, some people rating it a 1, some people we've got a 1 and a 2, and then other people rating
the rating
it
wars
10s.
The BoardGameGeek rating wars. I'm rating this a 10 to outbalance all the 1s. I'm rating this a 1 to outbalance all the 10s, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, so we've had like 1s and 2s and come in, which, to give you an idea of how many 1s and 2s, a combined total of 9 ratings of 1 and 2 combined.
You've probably never
ratings
played the
of
game.
10? Of course, definitely not. But we've got 153 10-star or 10-star ratings, 63 9-star, 59 8-star, and then 7 is like 15. So it just really starts to drop there. But so people really love the game, and I think that they just wanted to probably knock it off its high horse, because 8.8 is a strange rating. And now that it's rated 8.7, I'm sure people are going to start to bring that up and say, you are a liar. Now it's 8.7, and it's very funny. But yeah, so that's kind of the content of the ad. So what I did was, now there's this thread which we can get into. The thread itself is a doozy. It's all sorts of fun. So if you haven't yet looked at it, if you're in a place to look at it, pause it, look for what we'll have it in the show notes so that you can find it. But I posted on like around page 3. It's like the very end of page 3. I actually shared all 5 of our ads for that size. So there are actually many different sizes, mobile sized ads that are banners, ads that are square, that you need for BoardGameGeek. So rather than share all, 25 variations of ads and whatnot, I posted just the 5 basic types so that you can see the variety that we put together. And I talked about this. Oh, so by the way, the Chad Kreisen gave me, I requested our stats to see what's happening with the ads. And Chad actually added something extra. He said, that the results that our ads are getting are stellar. The average performance, this is an exact quote, the average performance for site-wide banners over this same time span that I asked for a measurement is 0.25%. So 0.25% click-through rate. If you see an ad on BoardGameGeek, everything added together is 0.25. Our results are 0.65. So we have an average click-through rate of 0.65 on all of our ads. And that is 260% higher than normal, like 260% higher than the average. And now that it varies just based on the position. So like mobile ads are going to get higher click-through rates just because they're larger and it's just, I don't know exactly why they just get higher click-through rates, but the wide banners that go over the top of every forum, those get much higher. So we have like 0.92% click-through rate for some of those banners, 0.7, 0.8% click-through rate for some of the mobile banners. And these are overall lower, the squares that the one square that the guy linked. So I combed through and figured out the results of the ads. So the ad 1 through 5, it just so happens that the Sam Healy face ad is ad number 2. And I listed the results. So they range between 0.23 to 0.48 in click-through rate. So, out of every, I don't know, like if 100 people click on the ad, or if 200 people click, or if 200 people see the ad, that means one person is going to click on Sam Healy's face. And that's actually a great click-through rate, 0.48. So I don't want to go on a tirade for too long about these numbers and everything, but it generally being the highest click-through rate, it had BoardGameGeek uses I believe it's called Google AdSense. It's like a display ads system that Google allows you to integrate into your own website, and it's pretty cool. But it's been around forever, and that's what they use. So it prioritizes automatic. If you put 5 images and it'll rotate through, it will figure out how many people are seeing it compared to how many are clicking, and the ones that are getting more clicks are gonna get prioritized. So the ad that gets 0.7% click-through rate is the one that's going to get like 99% of your impressions after a period of time, compared to the one that gets 0.2% click-through rate. And that's what you want when you're paying for impressions, which is the number of times people see your ad. You want it. I mean, it doesn't matter. You want more people to click. As long as you're not paying per click, you want more people to click, right? So the better ads should be the ones that are prioritized, the ones that are shown. And that's exactly what BoardGameGeek does. So it's actually a pretty great system to work with. And so here we are.
And outside of Facebook ads, BoardGameGeek for tabletop games is your next stop. So this is a great case study that you should definitely investigate, because I imagine now, Andrew, a lot of people are going to be copying this formula. They're probably going to see all the ads now looking like this, just using some influencer with a very simple quote in the BoardGameGeek rating. So you might want to try it yourself and see how it works out.
I'll use my own face. So yeah, it's really cool. I think that in fact, the 2 ads that performed the best were the Sam Healy quote, as well as the Theo Nerds quote, which I thought was really cool. Every theology nerd needs this game on their shelf.
Okay, interesting. So the quotes did the best.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. I'll have to look and see if like the other formats performed the same, but I definitely think that the quotes are a big deal. The ad that I thought was going to perform the best, so there were 2 that I thought would outperform. The first one is kind of the Angel Michael floating over the town of Fallbrook. It's like an ominous, very, very kind of, I would say, normal town sunset happening with an angel armed with a broadsword floating over it. It's kind of cool looking, and with our logo, so you know what game it is. Maybe I should remove that. I wonder if the click-through rate would be higher if I simply removed the logo. But and then we had another one that had like several angels side by side, like the art pieces, and with the phrase epic tactical co-op angels versus demons, and along with the 8.8 rating in order now. So that's where we had a wide variety, but it just seemed like the quotes outperformed all the others. So when we get more quotes, maybe I'll use more talking heads.
Yeah. And the comments have been interesting, from this is a bad ad to this is a great ad to conspiracy theories about, I don't know, neo-Nazism. I don't even know how that came up.
I don't know what the deal is with like 8.8. Is there a deal with 8?
Apparently it's some type of hidden message that.
I was like very curious. Like I wanted to go down a rabbit hole and say, how is 8 linked to neo-Nazi extremism or something? I think it's probably the wrong rabbit hole to go down.
I think so. Yeah.
I'll probably send that person a private message later and just like ask and say, hey.
I don't know how a game about Christ, who is the king of the Jews, could be labeled anti-Semitic.
Oh yeah, we did.
Sense.
Yeah, it was really curious. I think that it was more they were saying, like, as a general view, their view on certain sects of Christianity were that those people were more likely to be anti-Semitic or something like that. I honestly think that this is something that I am more likely to deal with than others. However, I'll say that trolls are everywhere and take all shapes and say all sorts of stupid things. It's really important not to feed the trolls. So I think that we had an experience a long time ago with a game called Tournament Fishing, and that was where a guy just was very, we'll put it this way, he fed the trolls a lot, and it was a really negative thing overall, in my opinion. I don't think that you want to come off as like a huge jerk or anything, but I don't know. I fear talking so much about it, but if you want to look into what happened, you can. But I felt like the mistake in that situation was the feeding of the trolls. The people that were, most likely to be outraged by insensitive comments were the only ones that he was talking to. And for me, I need to, like, the way that I kind of diffuse trolling situations is, number one, I just don't really address those people. And number two, if I do address them, I only try to address the kernel of like legitimate concern in what it is that they're writing. A lot of the time,
benefit of other people.
Right. And even sometimes for that person, like if somebody's wondering about like the extremism of one kind or another, I'll just say, if I had to address it, I would just say something as simple as, oh, you don't need to know the Bible in order to play. It's a game it's game first, instead of like trying to teach so much before it is trying to be a good game. And I think that's probably closer to the real question people have. And, it also refocuses the subject from someone like arguing about some real life thing. Like, we play board games to escape real life. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm like, when I'm an angel slaying demons by the power of God, it just feels good, and then I go back to being a normal everyday digital marketing nerd with a bunch of kids, and it's cool, but it's fun. I can't wait to get back into that Deliverance world or whatever. So I try to kind of keep the main thing, and not allow, somebody with real life gripes about something harsh my mellow. It's kind of like that, having a cell phone at a board game table. I tell people, put their cell phone down. It's like, stop bringing real life into board games. Let's have fun. Like, we're here to have fun first and foremost, right? So anyway.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people throw around terms they really have no idea what they mean anyway. I think most people who say anti-Semite don't even know what a Semite is.
Yeah. So I'm about 20% Ashkenazi Jewish by blood. So it's we ate matzo ball soup growing up. We did all the things. So I'm a real mutt as far as my genealogy goes. But it's a a curiosity. I think best not to indulge those people and just continue doing what it is that you love. Focus on the things you love and you'll be a lot happier. Right. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
The internet is the internet, and there's always going to be wild,
yeah,
wild things happening.
Yeah.
Partly exacerbated through social media. So
Yeah. So
cool. Is there any other lessons that we can learn from this? I think, so maybe the key takeaways is if you're going to use an influencer, get their permission, maybe show the ad to them first and see if they're cool with it. And then when you create BoardGameGeek ads, maybe try using a quote with the BoardGameGeek rating listed on it, a face of the influencer, and then try lots of different variations, which are all very different from each other so that you can A/B test those. And if your post happens to go viral and people are talking about it, don't feed the trolls.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that there are certain things that you can't control. Like I could not control one person writing an entire essay about this ad. I'm actually really happy that they did that, but I think that it's again something you can't control. So worry about what you can control, focus on those things. And then if it goes well, and you end up getting something that goes viral, don't step in it. Like it would be better for you not to say anything than for you to say something stupid. So, be thoughtful about what you say, how you engage. For me, I decided to kind of put my crowdfunding nerds hat on and say, well, these were why we did our ads the way we did. And this was the result and, all of that. So at least I can add to the conversation instead of stir the pot. You don't want to be number one on the BoardGameGeek rating because, you stole $300,000 worth of Magic cards from Gen Con. Like your game will be number one. Like that actually happened. For those that might not be familiar, some board game designer wore his t-shirt for his board game and was caught on CCTV stealing a pallet of Magic the Gathering from Gen Con in 2023 this year. That
it's cool guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, guerrilla marketing. It was a joke, guys. It was a joke. Take the cuffs off, please. So yeah, it was a very interesting thing. So maybe we can transition now. I feel like we've beat that that horse into near oblivion. Maybe we can transition now into the overall strategy for Deliverance during the holiday season and just in general for games. So I was looking. So I decided we're gonna spend $100 a day on Facebook ads, and this was in like early November. We're just gonna spend $100 a day on Facebook ads. We're now in a place where we have our web store that is doing well, and that is stable and able to bear the weight of people, hundreds of people going there and buying things and whatnot, so that people can actually buy things and receive them after they buy them. So we started pumping money into Facebook ads, and I realized, I'm like, why am I only spending $100? Like we're averaging about $400 in at the time it was like $300 a day in return, and I'm spending $100. It ranged. It's a little high. It was a little higher than that. So we're earning like 3.5 back for every dollar that we spent, which is a decent number to start. And I realized now is the time that people are actually buying. So I went ahead and I more than doubled that on Facebook ads. Which sounds like a lot, like spending $250 a day. Like I don't have $250 a day to burn on things. However, I am turning that right around and making money the very same day. So it's really, you don't need like $10,000 to do that. You need, $1,000 to do that. And as long as you're making money as it works, you can pump more in. So I'm spending $100 a day on Amazon.com. I'm spending like $250 a day on Facebook. I'm spending $40 a day on Twitter. I think we are spending $20 or $40 a day on Gab because you brought it up and I thought, why not? Let's do that. We have we're rolling on BoardGameGeek. I want to say it's around, I don't know, like $4,500 or $5,000 that we spend on BoardGameGeek overall, which is kind of going to carry us through mid-January. And we're kind of spending a lot. We have many reviewers that have our games in hand. Only a few of them have actually put a review up. That's one of the things that I really look forward to, and getting more reviews actually finished. But we're really, really peppering it like hardcore. We made like $24,000 in the month of November. We did a Black Friday / Cyber Monday sale. And we can talk about how we did that. But I thought that was very successful. And in, the first 7 days of November, we've made about $4,500. Just through our website, not counting Amazon. I'd have to look at those numbers.
How are the Twitter ads doing?
I'm not sure how well they're doing. My gut feeling is that they're not performing that well. I just am. What I found to be effective on Twitter is our video ads. So 15-second videos are, generally what perform well there. You can do like a promoted tweet or things like that. But I didn't really have anything that was like a good fit. So based on my research, I'm like, just figured we're going video. And the video that performed really, really well. So I had 2 videos that performed well. One was so we have a video that's like a rotating board game. It rotates left to right. And then we have the angel miniatures figures to the left and right of that just kind of spin in the middle of space. I don't know if maybe you guys have seen it before on Facebook, but it's at the end of our Kickstarter trailer. It's just meant to be a little bit of movement so that you can clearly see what it is. It's almost just like a picture that moves a little bit. So there was that video. And then there was the one that we did that was like the end section of our Kickstarter video, where it was like Gabriel and Shula and Michael the Archangel fighting hordes of demons. That actually ended up performing the best by far. So, Gabriel shield bashing a demon, and then Shula lighting demons on fire, and then Michael jumping into a horde of demons, and then Christine, pulling lightning from the sky like Thor into her sword before she stabs an abomination on the hanging off the church steeple. Yeah, it's a pretty cool scene. But that ad actually performed really, really well. And surprisingly, so when I say well, it's 0.32% click-through rate, or 0.34. And the other ad was half that. Was like the still image ad, or I'm sorry, like the slightly moving video ad of the box cover and twirling minis. That did not perform well on Twitter compared to the action happening. And I think that while people are doing whatever they're doing on Twitter, that action really stops them and makes them pay attention and gets them interested. So I know we've made sales, but actually one of the problems I'll say that I really did. So I tried to get our website prepared for receiving the amount of traffic and influx that I wanted. So it's kind of like the farmer preparing for rain analogy. But one thing that I didn't really do very well is I didn't set up a system that would tell me with reliability and at a glance, like at a very easy glance, what sales are coming in from where. We have Google Analytics, we have Facebook ads, the stats and everything like that. They all work. We can see how many sales are generated by Facebook, but I'd really like a single dashboard that does all of that. And what's interesting is I may actually have one that I haven't seen the right page. I haven't, figured out the right page for it. I know it, in Google Analytics, I can do this, but Google Analytics 4, you have to create a report like that. And, so I haven't, having a 3-week-old baby, it's like priorities. I haven't dug
into it.
Yeah. So, what I decided I really wanted, like my general overall goal is exposure. It's kind of a weird phrase, a weird word that I don't like to use very much. I want to sell copies. I want to be profitable with our ads, but my number one priority is actually working to sell out of the inventory we have. I'm willing to, considering all the amount that we paid for manufacturing and everything, we have all of this extra stock now, which is about, like 1,700 games left or so. And we have to figure out, how am I going to sell through 1,700 units? Because each box represents $100 to me, regardless of how much I paid to get it shipped to the places I did. I've got, copies in Australia. I've got copies in the United Kingdom. I've got copies in, Germany, copies in the United States. So how am I going to turn all of those, those 1,700 games into $100 bills? So you can consider like each copy of the game was $17.08. Then the landed cost was another, $2.50 or whatever. And by the time everything works out, it's about $20 per game that it actually cost me to make and ship. And then, like the last mile shipping, if you will, it ranges between, $20 and $30, just generally depending on where it's going. But all of these things are kind of like sunk cost. I've already paid for those things. So now I have a box that could make me $100 if I sell it. So the marketing cost is and things like ongoing storage fees are the only things that matter right now. So if I spend $50 to sell one game, it doesn't earn. I mean, that's not a profitable long-term strategy, but it is actually, I made $50 at this point, right? So the question is, how can I make sure that this is a sustainable strategy? So obviously right now we're selling, we're getting better numbers than that. We're making anywhere from $400 to $1,000 every day on or it was like 1,600 a day. Is like, it ranges like between about that to 400 to 1,600 a day in return. So, the question is, how are we going to sustain a business over a long term? And what I plan on doing is, kind of my long-term strategy is the Kickstarter that we do for an expansion. That is where I plan on, kind of refueling and filling the coffers and reprinting the base game and printing the expansion and all of that. So that again, we'll have units to sell and, I'll use the phrase liquidate. We need to get rid of our games, right? And sell the games. So, part of the goal is just to make sure that everybody knows the game exists, and which is why this BoardGameGeek article is so timely, because so many people are talking about the game, and just a small little ad that it reached the number 3 on the hotness list, and many more people are discovering the game now. So that when one day a reviewer that they like that has the game in hand, but it's kind of in their reviewer queue, like the Dice Tower or Quackalope or Board Game Co., with Alex Radcliffe or tons of others, have the game, they make their conclusions about the game, whatever it is. Hopefully some of them are going to be very positive. All of those people will remember Deliverance from BoardGameGeek, will remember Deliverance from the Facebook ad, finally hears, oh, wow, this game is really, really good. It's one of my top 10 for the year or whatever. That's what I want. That's when I want to kind of claim a bunch of sales as a result of the ongoing work that we've been doing. So we've been working on exposing the game to a lot of people. We are making money, but I plan on capitalizing on that exposure with reviews and with other things that we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a very clever strategy to implement. And that, I think another thing that people need to keep in mind is that might not seem like a good way to go, because, I'm not making a great deal of money if I'm just getting exposure, so to speak. But I think the goal is that once someone is acquired, it's much easier to sell to them again. And I do know that you have an expansion in the works. So even if you kind of have a loss lead in the sense that you're not making too much money off selling a person Deliverance, your plan then is to sell them an expansion where you're going to make a lot more from that. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well, is that you do have another way of selling more products to those people. And this is something we see with our e-commerce accounts, is that once we acquire a purchase, it's much easier to sell those people other things, especially if there's a large catalog on a particular store. It's what makes running ads for smaller publishers a lot harder, because they don't have a big catalog of games. They might just have one game. Right. So you pay all this money to acquire a sale, but then you can't do anything else with that sale because you have nothing else to sell them. Whereas if you're a publisher that has maybe 4 or 5 titles, so then, oh yeah, by the way, we also produce this, or this game is similar to this, and you can kind of hit them with different messaging once you capture that sale. So the cost per acquisition drastically reduces once you start making sales.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it was different. My strategy has adapted over time. What I initially wanted to do is, of course, I wanted to actually pay myself for doing this and pay our artists and other things like that. But what I realized was I can turn this into a board game company. This, Low End Games is my publishing arm that I used to publish Deliverance. I can turn Low End Games into a company that publishes board games, and we can have Deliverance as like our first, and then we can come up with our next game and build over time, kind of like a traditional publishing company. Or we can go full force into building a brand off of this game, off of Deliverance. And I found that Deliverance has so much, it has, the fans of the game are so hardcore that it is the type of game that I think people would, it just will perform better than coming up with an entirely new IP. So with the limited time and the limited resources that I have, it makes more sense at this point to continue to focus on what's working rather than to diversify myself and say, oh, I'm going to develop like 10 games at the same time. And then, we're going to have a content calendar, kind of like, let's say somebody that does this well. We always use Stonemaier Games as an example of a company that does this well. They come out with generally at least one new game every single year, which if you understand how to design board games and all of that, that's kind of a lot for one, I'll say one person, and I know that Jamie Stegmaier has a couple of employees now, but for one person to design one game and actually publish and release one game a year, that's a lot. So for me, I'm not in a position where I have all of the infrastructure to do that. And so I thought, rather than kind of fragmenting my attention even further, let me focus and give people what they clearly want. And we'll focus on Deliverance. So my strategy for that is that I want to develop an expansion, release on Kickstarter that makes $1 million. So that my kind of big, hairy, audacious goal is $1 million expansion, because we raised $314,000 on the first Kickstarter. If we do $1 million on the next one, or if we fall short of that goal and hit 500,000 or whatever, we're going to be taking even more seriously, and we're going to develop even more fans and that sort of thing. So we're going to be able to make more Deliverance, more people will be happy, and so on. So, and it's what we know. It's what's proven. Like, I can come up with an expansion every single year. It's the game system is developed and it's ready to be expanded upon. And fans absolutely want expansion content. So I'm trying to kind of remain very focused. I think that's where a lot of companies, even companies that we work with, will come out with one game that's really awesome in a particular theme, and then they come out with their next game in an entirely different theme, entirely different mechanics, entirely different audience, and they're surprised when their email list doesn't convert very high from the past. I think that it's really important to kind of be focused as a company, and this is my way of doing that while balancing all of the other responsibilities that I have.
And there's risk, right? Whenever you create a new thing, it's untested. I'll include a link in the show notes, and I was talking about Steam games, and there's a particular company that creates basically fake Steam games so that they can see how well the games get in terms of organic wish lists. And then they'll only start developing the games that kind of get a good organic traction on Steam. So they it's almost like kind of creating fake creating fake Kickstarter projects just with like a thumb, and seeing how well can it organically get Kickstarter followers, and then developing that game or that idea. Because there is risk. You don't want to put all your heart and soul and finances into a project that, there really isn't a market for. And that could be nothing about your abilities as a game designer. It's just people don't typically want it. So, there's a reason why there's flagship products for big game companies like Rockstar, GTA,
Yep.
Blizzard is the Warcraft series.
Yep.
So on and so forth, is because, well, there's low risk, and that's what works, and that's what their communities have become. They know them for those things. So it just makes sense.
Actually, on a similar vein, I was I watched a YouTube video. So I love watching League of Legends. It's one of my kind of pastimes that I do for, League of Legends. Worlds happens every year, like October, November, and it's super fun. It's it might be the biggest game in the world right now. It's definitely the biggest event in esports. The League of Legends World Championships gets like, well over 1 billion people to watch it every year. So it's a really big deal. But I watched a YouTube video that somebody gave. I'll have to look it up because it's quite interesting. Maybe we can include a link in the show notes as well. But how did League of Legends become what it is today? There were lots of competitors that they dealt with. The people that made it weren't business people. The game is 15 years old, and it's still right now the biggest game in the world. And so how did it become that way? How did it stay that way? And one of the, in the actual post, one of the most interesting things was that they focused, so Valve, who you love, I know you love Valve, Sean. You're a fanboy of Valve, aren't you?
Yeah.
How much Dota 2 have you played by Valve?
None.
What? How dare you play none? Well, I've also played very little because Dota 1 was like, Warcraft 3. That was a big,
I don't
big
like
game
MOBAs,
for me.
so that's why I haven't played much League either. So it's not
Take
like
that back. No. Well, yeah, you like stuff like Quake more, don't you?
FPS.
So yeah. So then the concept was, Valve had all sorts of different games. They had, they have the Steam store. They have a lot of different projects that they have to focus on. Well, Riot Games only had League of Legends. So, other games had, Heroes of New Earth was a competitor. Smite was a competitor. There were lots of other, MOBAs that hit. Dota 2 is probably the biggest competitor to League of Legends in regard to, MOBAs. And, League just destroyed all of them. And, the question is why? And this answers, really well. But one of the things that I think Riot Games did very well was focus. They focused and they made what the players wanted. So other games like Heroes of New Earth was a game that started out at like $60 per unit, which was common. League started out as free to play. By the time a year later, Heroes of New Earth switched to free to play, League of Legends had a player base that was 20 times the size of Heroes of New Earth. And then even still, Heroes of New Earth failed to create microtransactions that players actually wanted to buy. Everybody wanted skins, like cosmetic skins for their characters so that, the dinosaur would be like Mecha Godzilla and have, drills for arms and his abilities would be different, whatever. I was talking about Cho'Gath for anybody that plays League of Legends. But other things like that are things that players actually want. League had a better eye on what the customer actually wanted. And I think that's really the key. At the end of the day, we have to figure out, as publishers, as marketers, whoever's listening to this podcast, you need to know what your people want, who they are, what they care about, what they actually want you to make. They'll give you all sorts of positives, like, I'll buy anything that you make. But then when push comes to shove, what will they actually pay for and that kind of thing? And I think the only way that you can have a true understanding of that is by having your ear to the ground all the time, by communicating with your people, by going where your people go and doing what your people do, so that you can know them. And I know that my Deliverance fans want more Deliverance, and I know that strangers on the internet want Deliverance when they discover what Deliverance is. If they are the right type of person, they will absolutely just buy it. I'll say one. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. I'll just say one other thing that League of Legends did was that it gave gamers an opportunity to make a livelihood from the game itself, whether that was through becoming a competitive player that had a very big esports scene, or becoming some type of content creator around the game, or becoming a caster, a commentator, someone who could talk in tournaments. And this is actually something we've been talking about in terms of with Deliverance. How do we turn this into like a competitive game? How do we run tournaments and offer, unique perks and things? Because I think one reason why League of Legends exploded was because World of Warcraft Arena failed. It failed to capture that esports vibe and feel. And a lot of people who were disgruntled with the sort of lackluster WoW Arena experience switched over to League of Legends. I was there at the very beginning, around 2007. All my Arena partners like, just go play League of Legends. I was like, why? It's just like Warcraft, but worse.
Smaller.
Yeah. So like, instead of having like 20 abilities, I have like 4, and like, this is seems kind of silly. So anyway, that's one reason why I didn't get into it. But I know a lot of WoW players who was fed up with sort of the imbalances within WoW Arena just switched over to League, and I think they stayed.
Yeah. Also, another thing that League did very well was that they actually policed their community for trolls and for negativity. One thing that Dota is very, very famous for are trolls, just, people cussing each other out on the same team before the game even starts. That's like it. I mean, I hope now that Dota 2 actually does a better job policing than they used to, but that was what the toxicity of that community was what the game was known for. And League actually, really did a good job policing their community, making sure that, hey, if you get, like, if you receive too many violations, you will be banned. Like, your account will be shut off. And so the trolls would, kind of sign their own death warrants in that way, So toxic players tended to be attracted to other games that their toxic behavior wasn't called out, So so I mean, there are other things, and you kind of touched on a topic that I think will be really, really great for a future episode, which is turning Deliverance into a lifestyle game. As a lifestyle game, we're talking about things like Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, these games where people say, this is my game, I play this game, Dungeons and Dragons, that type of thing. And I have a vision for how to do that with Deliverance, and that's kind of where I'm moving. But there are a lot of plans, a lot of, I would if I could kind of thing that will only be determined over time. I don't want to finally record a podcast when I'm at the top of the mountain saying, this is how I did it. I want to kind of walk through as we, take each step, but I don't think I'm quite ready to have a conversation like that, but it's definitely coming. And I think that one of the last things I'll mention that you kind of touched on a little bit was the competitive tournament scene in League of Legends actually loses money for them every year. It's never made money for them as far as I know. They've always lost money. It is what they call a loss leader, where people will engage in it and appreciate it, but it won't make you money in and of itself. However, it will continue to fuel what does make you money. And so, although you won't be able to attribute your sales to, let's just say for example, in Deliverance, we just announced that we're releasing quarterly content packs so that you get a free PDF every single quarter of missions that you can play. So it's a reason to bust out your Deliverance game again after you've had it on the shelf for a while. Once a quarter, you can break it out and have something new to experience for free. I think that's not going to make us any money. Working for a free product just doesn't make you money. But what does is somebody that had the game on their shelf for a while busted out and said, oh, like we have a Christmas themed mission. And that's the kind of the first one that we're releasing. It's going to get somebody to bust it out, maybe at a family event, maybe with friends, and say, oh, I want to play this. And then new people are going to see the game and say, oh, wow, that looks interesting. And that's generally how board games are sold. So you definitely want to figure out, how can we market to our internal people? Like, what do our people want? Sometimes if it costs you to give the people what they want, it will be very worthwhile over the long term. So I consider it more of an investment rather than something that is an expense. An expense is something like, I have to pay my insurance bill. I have to pay my rent. But an investment is, I'm investing into my mortgage or whatever because I will have a house. I'll own my house free and clear one day. Well, in this case, it's like I am investing in my audience. Yeah. Yeah. No, let's not get into that one. Oh my goodness. The bank still owns it after you pay it off, but or the government does. So anyway, I think that the idea is that You want to find ways to invest into your fans so that they will kind of, without you having to ask them, like I'm not begging people to give me ratings out of, 10 out of 10 on BoardGameGeek or anything, but they are, because they like the game. And I think that that's really important. Like, I don't actually plan on, asking people to counter the ones with 10s now, everyone. Although I could, I just think that it would, be more genuine if people genuinely review the game. I mean, the best way to counter ones, if somebody gives you a negative rating online, just go get 150 ratings. And the vast majority of those, if you're being a good service provider, are going to be positive. So, anyway, I guess that's probably all that we are able to get into for this week's episode, because, oh my gosh, it was fun, but we're at over 50 minutes at the moment. So, Sean, you have anything you want to say? I'll give you the last word.
Crack-a-lacka.
That was a terrible word.
So that's all the time we have for this episode. Make sure to check out crowdfundingnerds.com to see what we offer, how we can help you get your crowdfunding campaign, board game, tabletop game to the next level. Also, make sure to check out the show notes for any of the information that we mentioned in this episode. And if you have a question, join our Facebook community, the Crowdfunding Nerds community. Ask questions there. There's plenty of people in the community who are willing to help, and we can even jump in as well if we see your question and we have the time to respond. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.